So there are 4 markers that we need to assess in uncovering whether or not we are partitioning nutrients effectively. So fasting glucose, this measures your blood sugar after not eating for at least 8 hours. This is one that are on most panels that you're going to get done, and this is typically why we need you to be fasted. So yes, that includes anything with caloric value. So beverages, even small, like, I don't know, vitamin gummies, like whatever. We want this normal range to be within 70, we'll say, to 100 to 99. But it's typically at the point where I see someone who's like 95, 100, and it is also relative to the state that they're in. So in the case that someone is in the off season, they're a little bit higher body fat, they're eating more food, maybe we do let this escalate up from 85 to 95. When someone's in a contest prep, if that value is still on the higher side or trending up, well, this could be indicative that they're not partitioning nutrients in the most effective way, and that potentially the overall allostatic load, the stress associated with, the state they're in, that fat loss phase, it's not allowing them to be very effective in managing glucose levels. So it does need to be weighted conscious to the phase that someone's in their body composition. But essentially fasting glucose just means there is an elevation in circulating glucose that indicates a poor blood sugar regulation. Could be tied, we see this in clinical setting, is tied to prediabetes or stress-related glucose spikes. Second lab marker, fasting insulin. Now this measures how much insulin your body is producing while you're fasted. Ideally, we want this under 10, optimally I would say closer to 5, 6, 7, but what it means is that elevated insulin would suggest insulin resistance, meaning your cells aren't responding to insulin properly, so your body keeps producing more. Now, it's important to understand that, like, my last panel, I went and had a protein shake before, and I was very much of the impression, I'm like, hey, like, I know this is going to offset these levels because I'm not fasting. My insulin is going to be elevated. My glucose is going to be elevated. And what do you know? They were. So whenever you go to get labs done, if you were getting these checked, it's really important that you're very clear on if you are fasted and that you are documenting that accordingly, or at least reporting it to the lab administration that, hey, I am or I'm not fasted. A1C. Now, this is going to give you a 3-month average of blood sugar levels. And we want this range between 4.5, 4.8, upper end. You're going to see people say 4.7, 4.8. I will say that, like, for physique enhancement, optimization, it really does depend on the context of the phase in which we're in. But also, it's like if I start to see someone's levels beginning to trend up, even if we're like 5.1, 5.3, 5.5, and like I know we still have a bit of a leg ahead, that food is going to be high, body fat's going to be high, that is a point in which I may intervene and be like, hey, I think we need to take some kind of approach to bring these levels down or help you modulate glucose better. Sure, like there are people that, like, they get all like up in arms. They're like, why would you have metformin? They're not pre-diabetic. And it's like, okay, well, if someone's like trending that way and there's no indication that something's going to change or we're going to undo some of, this consequence, it's like, it might be better to be a little more prophylactic. So high levels do suggest long-term glucose dysregulation and potentially prediabetes. Now, the fourth marker is HOMA-IR, so homeostatic model assessment of insulin resistance. All this is a calculation value using fasting glucose, fasting insulin. We want you at less than a 2. So similar to the A1C, we're looking at the trend. And like, that's really what I want to gather is like, is fasting insulin and fasting glucose, is this HOMA-IR? Is it elevated because that person drove back from LA all the way to San Jose and they didn't sleep much and they were on a plane before that and they were traveling the whole month prior to, so they're very dysregulated. They're going from East Coast to Pacific time and they're very discombobulated, for lack of any other better term. Really, we just need to assess, is that HOMA-IR, is that accurate or is it artificially inflated? But a high HOMA-IR indicates insulin resistance, which is a major roadblock for fat loss. Now, contributing factors, being sedentary, low muscle mass, excess calories, elevated levels of refined carbs and sugars, chronic stress, elevated cortisol, which does raise blood sugar, poor sleep, which is going to disrupt insulin signaling. Now, There are non-pharmacological methods we can use to approach this, and there are pharmacological ones. Non-pharmacological is going to be strength training, building muscle, increasing glucose uptake, focusing heavily on the diet side and micronutrient profiles, including proteins and fats into these carb-dense meals and fiber to stabilize blood sugar, walks after meals to reduce post-meal glucose spikes, and obviously some stability in your circadian rhythm cycle, prioritizing sleep and managing stress. For severe cases, yes, we could consider something like a GLP-1. I wouldn't consider metformin as like, I don't know, a turning point. Like when you have someone who's getting on a statin or a blood pressure medication, an ARB or ACE, it's like, okay, well, they probably aren't able to correct it with lifestyle modifications. And in this case, I would say metformin could be something that you use prophylactically. You can come on and off. And I would say, especially in the case of the physique athlete or someone who's trying to get the most out of what they're doing, metformin could be a benefit here.